Martin Ødegaard is one of the best players in the Premier League this season, and it is actually a little bit of a bummer that we won't be seeing the young captain at the ongoing World Cup in Qatar. Anyway, in this video today, we won't be laminating about his absence from the tournament. We instead want to talk about the type of season he has been having so far. As you know, Ødegaard was named captain of the Arsenal senior team at the beginning of the season, following the exit of both Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Alexandre Lacazette, who both served as captains of the club last season. This obviously says a lot about the type of person Ødegaard is, and it is impressive for many reasons. First, because he is only 23 and is already captaining both his club and his national team. It is now even more impressive because he only joined Arsenal last year, first on loan in January and then permanently in the summer. So literally just 1 year after signing a permanent deal with this big club, he's already first-team captain, and so far, he seems to be wearing the armband very well. So well that you might forget that he was pretty much written off as a flop and one of those really talented youngsters who failed to live up to their potential. Yes, he's still very young, but he was much younger when he moved to one of the biggest clubs on the globe. He was only 16 years old when he caught the eye of Real Madrid, and the Spanish giants decided to bring him over from Norway immediately, and he became the youngest ever debutant in Real Madrid's rich history. But things did not exactly go as planned for both the player and the club, and Madrid started to look for ways to dispose of the teenager. And, as it is for many youngsters, it started out as a loan tour. To be fair to Ødegaard, it's not exactly like he was poor at Madrid. It was just so difficult to break into that very dominant midfield at the time he joined. He was bought just when Madrid were going into their era of dominance. And so it was always going to be really difficult to give a teenage youngster minutes when Modric, Kroos and Casemiro were all in their prime. And don't forget that that team still had the likes of Kovacic, Isco and James Rodriguez on the bench during that same period. So, upon a closer look, you'll discover that Ødegaard not succeeding at Real Madrid was hardly an issue of him not being talented enough. It was more about the Real Madrid team being packed full of experienced and already established superstars during that period. And if you doubt that, you not only have his Arsenal career to prove otherwise, but also his lone year at Real Sociedad. There, he managed 16 goal contributions in one season, 6 of which came in his 5 appearances in the Copa del Rey. Those were very important goal contributions as they helped Sociedad win the Copa del Rey that season, the club's first major trophy in 33 years. Oh, and let's not forget that he had a huge hand in eliminating his then parent club, Real Madrid, from that tournament with his goal against them in the quarterfinal. The following year, he joined Arsenal on loan and immediately hit the ground running. Arsenal knew they had caught a gem and were not going to let him go. He became a core of Arteta's new project. So once summer came around, the boss immediately signed the Norwegian from Madrid for just 35 million euros. A fantastic bargain if you think about it now. Ødegaard immediately became a very integral part of the team, sitting out just 2 Premier League games the entire season with 7 goals and 4 assists to show for it. Pretty good returns from the midfield, isn't it? Arsenal fans were already happy with their new attacking midfielder, but little did they know that things were about to get even better for them and their boy. At the end of that season, he was named team captain. Arsenal really needed a breath of fresh air in that captaincy role following what happened with Aubameyang and Xhaka in the last couple of years. And having worked with him for a year and a half, Arteta thought Ødegaard was just the best person to hand their armband to, despite there being older players and longer-serving players in the squad. And so far, the 23-year-old has carried that huge responsibility really well. In just his 3rd game as captain of the Arsenal first team, Ødegaard scored twice in the opening 11 minutes of the Premier League game against Bournemouth, and that was not going to be his last brace of the season because he repeated that same feat against Wolves in Arsenal's last game before the World Cup break. That brace effectively put Arsenal 5 points clear of the top of the table going into Christmas, and we don't want to jinx it, but you know exactly what topping the table at Christmas almost always means in the Premier League. If what we're all thinking eventually happens, you just know Ødegaard would be a very integral part of that success. First of all, with 8 goal contributions in 13 appearances so far this season, he for sure will continue to be a very important player for the North London club going forward. Also, should Arsenal win the league come next year, he will be the first player to captain an Arsenal side to Premier League success since the legend himself, Patrick Vieira, did almost 3 decades ago. That would just be very monumental. something the likes of Fabregas, Robin van Persie, Thierry Henry, and even Mikel Arteta himself could not manage in all their years as captains of Arsenal. But here's the thing, even if Arsenal somehow don't come out as champions at the end of this season, it still would not belittle Martin Ødegaard's impact at the club since he joined, and particularly since he became captain. With him being Arsenal's top goalscorer so far in the Premier League this season, you have to say that he is indeed leading by example. Even apart from the goals, watching Ødegaard play gives you a clear picture of how very important he is to the way Arsenal play. He is the link between attack and midfield. Very often, you see him receive the ball from the defense and start up a very brilliant attack. And as the numbers show us, many times he is there to finish the attack too. He is one of the handful of players in this new-looking Arsenal side that you have to say Arteta cannot do without. Take him out and the team will really struggle. But while Martin Ødegaard seems nearly perfect, there are still a few things he might need to work on. As a player, he'll need to step up more in the big games. He has played 4 games against the other Premier League Big Six this season, and he has managed only 1 goal contribution. This simply means he needs to do better against the big boys. Of course, this is not to say that the goal contributions he has managed against the other teams are useless, but as an important player and a leader, sometimes your team will need to draw inspiration from you in the biggest of games. Now, as a leader, he'll need to learn to stand up more for his teammates. Most of the time, it seems like when there's a confrontation by an opposing player or perceived unfair treatment from the ref, it is Xhaka who is at the forefront of the fight for his teammates. While this is not so out of place considering the Swiss midfielder is the vice-captain, it is primarily the responsibility of the man wearing the armband on the night to do that, so Ødegaard would have to learn to step up. Maybe that's the one thing he'll have to learn from Xhaka's leadership. Representing your players and standing up for them is your duty as a captain, and he needs to do more of that. Perhaps not to the extent Xhaka often takes it, but a little bit of that could just make him the perfect captain for a young squad like Arsenal's. But then, this is only the lad's first season as captain of a big club like Arsenal, so maybe we need to cut him some slack and allow him the grace to learn on the job, because if we're going to be totally fair and honest, Martin Ødegaard is having an amazing season at Arsenal both as a player and as a captain, and from the look of things, it can only get better.